This is the voice of Bold Business Radio, and I am your host, Jessica Dewell of Red Direction. You're listening to Program 27. Show up already. There is a steady stream of interweaving connections between mindfulness and presence. Not presence with a bow on them, rather as in being present. It's a large topic from one end of the spectrum to the other, and today we're going to look at just one piece of it. Here is a beautiful word gift that was bestowed to me that I'm now going to share with you. Anytime you can spend making friends or nurturing relationships is the most worthwhile way you can spend your time. That's a beautiful gift that was given to me, and I don't remember where it came from. It may be an anonymous quote, but I hold on to that in context, and I use it every single day. Whether we're at the store as we run errands, whether we see the same group of cars as we drive to work in the commute every single day, whether we're answering email or even just sitting at the dinner table, we could be thinking about the past. What if I don't get that sale? Boy, was that boss mad today. Oh, I lost a client's payment before I got it to the bank. What am I going to do? Or we could be living in the future. Will we get that promotion offer tomorrow? I'm anxious about the presentation to the board I have coming up. Can I actually give my people raises this year for their hard work? The thing is, there's so many distractions, worry, and possibility that it can be difficult to be present, to be right here, right now. Today, we're talking about showing up, and you will meet the panel for this leaders discussion right after this.
Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business, the show that provides everything smart leaders need to evaluate situations, build relationships, and create solutions. Jessica Dewell candidly talks about the skills necessary to build tenacity and do more with less. And now, here's Jessica.
All right, everybody, this is Program 27, Show Up Already. And I have three fabulous and amazing panelists to discuss with me this very important concept about showing up. First is Ande Lyons. Ande is an enthusiastic and experienced entrepreneur with an MBA and 4 successful businesses to her credit. Ande is the founder and the chief possibility officer of Possibility Partners. She mentors startups and early-stage entrepreneurs, and she quickly identifies winning strategies, effective resources, and creative solutions that work for your business. And at the same time, she inspires founders and their teams with her special brand of enthusiasm, positivity, which creates momentum and success for her growing enterprise. And Keri Jaehnig. Keri specializes in social media management and social media mentoring, Facebook marketing, and content generation for business, nonprofit, and public figures. Her work has been featured and quoted at Social Media Today, Business Insider, Search Engine People, Steamfeed, Blog World Expo, and AOL Small Business. And our third panelist today is Geoffrey Lane. His bio, Geoffrey wants you to know that everything you crave, everything that you work hard for, and that you hope to create requires that you speak to and create agreement with other people. Of course, you could live like a mountain man or on an island of paradise all by yourself, where your own actions bring all you need. If you work and live connected to the world, there are skills that are a must. Show up. I don't know if he wrote that introduction specifically for the show or not, but it was very fitting. All right, Ande, Keri, Geoffrey, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. All right, we're going to jump right in. I want to know, how do you answer this question? How do you know when you're interacting with somebody and they don't show up?
It depends on what kind of situation you're in as to what kind of reaction you're getting or what you're viewing in that setting. So, for instance, if you're in a meeting and you're seeing someone on their phone checking email, they're not showing up to that meeting. If you're in a live meeting, they're kind of staring at the wall and they're not looking at you, they're not making eye contact. It's pretty much, can you feel the vibe? I'll have some more things to say, but I feel like I should give some other people a chance.
I really love the whole idea of the gift of being present. We are run by our to-do list, but we're not human doers, we're human beings. And it's so important to show up and give the gift of our presence And that takes mindfulness and it takes returning to focus, but it also requires leadership. So the person holding the meeting, the person coaching, the person engaging the audience needs to do whatever he or she can to keep folks engaged. So it's kind of a give and take. And I think Stephen Covey talked a lot about this. Tony Robbins talks a lot about this. How to capture, how to bring. So you who are having the meeting or the event or the being opportunity really need to do the research on how to engage folks in a way that's meaningful.
Okay, I want to start off with bullshit. Not bullshit necessarily to my two previous speakers, but bullshit because I think most people don't know how to show up and so are incapable of showing up. In fact, you know, I groom, train speakers for major events, Winter Olympics, Olympic teams, bids of all sorts. I work with them all the time. Politicians, I work with them. And most people, when they soon as you put any pressure on them to show up, fall into conformity, form into their shells. They think they're showing up, but it's bullshit. They just are not. What it is, even this camera. Let's talk about being in front of this camera for a minute. How much of us are showing up? Are we showing up just to please people? Are we wanting to impress Jessica? Am I wanting to impress you? I've been talking about show up and show up in life for 8 years. And suddenly, in the last 2 years, it's become, there it is. Jessica asked, did I write that for this program? No, I stuck it in there because it's what I believe. I didn't want to put I make my living in the communication industries. In the last year, I've helped companies and organizations win over $1.7 million in business. And I've worked with their leadership. I've trained their people to present. And afterwards, they get told, somebody said to us it was refreshing to be told the truth. Well, you see, when you show up, you do tell the truth. But everything else, I don't know if you're showing up. I think it's bullshit. Soon as people get in front of a camera, in front of an audience, up kicks this age-old, be a good little boy, be a good little girl, I've got to do this right. All the public speaking training, all that crap kicks out, and bang, they don't show up.
I feel like I need to do a screen share of a recent New Yorker cartoon that I shared on Instagram where the guy shows up at the other guy's door. He goes, "Hello, George, it's your online presence."
Perfect. Perfect. I would love that. Let's stick it up on the site.
Okay. And then, of course, the guy who's answering the phone is in his bathrobe with a coffee. Hair's a mess. You bring up a very good point, and I know Keri will talk about this too, is there's an overused couple of words, transparency and authenticity. But what it really means is be genuine. And I think when you're able, and so many people aren't, I mean, really being able to pull back a curtain and really be who you are takes work. It takes a lot of inner work and being really feeling the self-worth and the self-love to allow yourself to do that. So I get your BS meter, I really do, but I also think that at the same time, people have to do the work in order to show up in a way that's meaningful.
I agree with most of what you've said, but it doesn't take a lot of work. What it takes is personal honesty. That's not work.
Some people it's work.
I agree that for some people it is work, Andy. But Geoffrey, I think that there's a certain element of it also takes confidence. It takes confidence in who you are so that you can then feel comfortable projecting who you really are and then let people react to you.
Even your use of word of projecting who you are doesn't allow you to show up. The United States has just gone through an amazing election. It's full of divisiveness. It's full of counterpoint and point. But as an observer, and do know that I'm half American and half British, but I live in Canada, I watched this and I thought, You see, the thing is, I don't know that Hillary Clinton ever showed up. She doesn't know how to do it anymore. So from that point of view, she could not do the work. She has been lost so long.
I'm going to jump in because I'm wondering if our ability to show up also comes with what is typical for the experiences that we have been in. Our personal conditioning, our personal journeys, what we have to individually fight for to get to where we want to go and achieve our dreams also conditions us and teaches us how to show up to be heard, how to show up to be credible, right, wrong, or otherwise.
I don't think it teaches us to show up. I think it teaches us to get by and get what we want.
In the world that I'm in, which is the startup world, an early stage enterprise world, the problem I see happening often are with founders or a founder who doesn't understand this role as founder. They understand role as this chief technology officer. They may understand the role of business owner. But they don't understand that really big, expansive role of showing up as the founder of this entity that needs them to be fully present to grow it and to get out of the way often.
But I think even, I challenge you, even you're thinking about showing up as a role, because if you say to somebody, you've got to behave like a founder, you're not showing up as a founder.
Well, there's ownership. I'm talking about the ownership of it. So a lot of them have come from working for people for so many years. So they have not yet made that transition from employee into founder. And
well, that's got nothing to do with showing up, but it has everything to do with a role model that somebody else wants to see you as. Is your investor is going to be looking for, well, does this person have entrepreneurial spirit? Are they this way? And they're not. They're an employee who suddenly got a really good idea, and you're saying, well, but you've got to show up this way to get your funds.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here because I hear two distinct conversations happening. One is we've got to take our experience and own that, and can we really own it? Can we step into it, and does it work for us or not? On the other side, there's a set of skills that we have to be able to do that are soft skills for the role that we need to be able to bridge gaps, to be able to understand and build relationships. Sometimes they're reliant on each other, but sometimes they're mutually exclusive. And so if I were to break those apart, let's talk about working for authenticity and recognizing that, yes, all of us have a BS meter. All of us know. I mean, we get it from all of the messaging and advertisements that are coming to us every single day throughout the day. Yet, I heard the word confidence. I heard honesty. Those are soft skills. So I'm curious, if you were to pick one soft skill that defines or is the first thing to think about for showing up, for being authentic in ourself, what would it be? And what is the first step of practicing that?
To Geoffrey's point, I think that he's saying we shouldn't practice it. We should just be it, live it, do it. I don't know. I'm kind of confused here with that. It kind of asks the wrong question, doesn't it?
And for me, it's all about branding. So you may be very withdrawn, very harsh. Your language may be using F-bombs every third word. But when you go to use your speak-ease as a representative of your business, you're not going to do that online. That may be the genuine you, but you're not going to do that online. You have to take the skill set of what is the voice that I'm going to use for my business when I'm in the world representing my business.
So I'd like to respond to both those points and actually to Jessica. Have you heard of Krups, the organization called Krups? Mm-hmm. It was a steel organization, Germany, in between the First World War and the Second World War. They got very rich during the First World War. And when the Second World War came along, they were kind of staunch protectors of the Jewish community. But at a certain point, they took the political necessity of protecting their business.
Okay.
What do you think about that? And that's one you can trace, you can look at it. Mm-hmm. So when a business when you, as a business, start speaking just to work for the business instead of your personal integrity, your personal values, your personal beliefs, you are no longer showing up for yourself or your business. But of course, the dollar is more important, or is it? If you watch children in kindergarten, yes, they have certain degrees of layering from social upbringing, from their parents, from their grandparents, from the TV, but if you generally leave them alone in the playground, pretty soon their personalities come out, and they don't do all what we do. They don't do a lot of the things that we do. So I don't know if, honesty would be the skill, but I don't even know if it's a skill. I mean, is it an inherent trait? I think so.
Okay. All right. And this is very interesting because I'd say probably. But when we're looking at something like, whether it's the book, Everything I Learned in Kindergarten, which speaks to part of what you were just saying, Geoffrey, that our own personalities come out. If I am a very shy, introverted person, which you all know that I am, and I have such a hard time doing this, that I needed to build confidence, it's one of those things where even if I'm shy and introverted, I can learn confidence. I can learn to speak out. I can learn by taking steps to practice something, to be able to engage in a different way, to be able to show up and actually be the person I am, the way that I need to be in the situation I'm at. And so that's when I think of words like confidence, I'm like, yes, I can practice confidence. I have to try enough to fail so I know what winning, succeeding looks like to me. I have to be willing to try something when I don't know what the outcome is going to be, when I have to take a leap of faith that I've done all the preparation that I have, and knowing that whatever happens is going to happen. Those are skills of confidence. They're actual practicable steps that allow us to maybe amplify what comes naturally because we're conscious about it and we're intentional when we're doing those things. But also, if we want that type of skill, if it's not inherent to us for whatever reason, usually we've unlearned it. It's not that it doesn't exist in us. It's been suppressed, or we've learned something different, and we need to be able to have a space to learn those things. So I'm a big proponent of being a leader is not something that we're born with. Some of us are, but some of us, skills we have to learn to be the best leader we can. And it's in that honesty. It's in that confidence. It's in that willingness to be okay, being seen.
I don't have any problems with most of what you're saying. As soon as you start putting honesty as a skill, whereas I'm trying to get to the point that honesty is a personal value.
I want to start back in the playground because ideally you come into this world, you're like ready to give your all, curtains up like the lights, you got nothing to hit but the heights. Yeah. And then life happens. You get sexually abused. You get emotionally abused. You get bullied for years and years and years. You have stuff happen. So yeah, Geoffrey, I think that ideally we show up fully honest and we have these great core values that we bring in, and our ability to empathically really connect with people in a meaningful foundational level. But at the same time, we are in repair because life happens. And maybe, you were blessed with a easy breezy, everything went great and you were always able, you didn't have to put a little mask on.
So are you asking me, because everything you described happened to me before I was 13?
Yeah, exactly.
Way, and
but I'm saying,
arrested, taken home.
But you can't tell me that you just
I think that
you didn't do any work to get where you are.
Conveniently mixing it up somehow. Who you are and what's happened to you doesn't define who you become. But I think the reason most people are not showing up is because they don't live in current reality. They live in some form of fantasy.
Well, I think the online social media and all of networks and apps that we have has contributed to that. I was brought up, I danced and I sang and I did drama things on stage, and my parents raised me to be this person that showed up wherever I was. I performed with a group that was on the White House steps. I mean, like, we did some funky stuff, and my parents really pushed me to be everything I could be and show up, Geoffrey. But I think our society has conditioned us to stop showing up. It depends on the situation that we're in and who we are that shows up, because society demands that we be acceptable, or, gosh, look at all the lawsuits and the things that are going on today, or, you know, gosh, you're racist or sexist or whatever, and they're just being what some would consider normal. I mean, it depends on how it's interpreted. So every single person in every situation is interpreting that interaction for what they're interpreting it as, and we're all responsible for ourselves and what the results are. And so I think that showing up is sometimes even dangerous, and people don't want to be at risk.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Voice of Bold Business Radio. This is Program 27, Show Up Already. I knew that there was going to be a streak of passion in each one of these people about this topic, and we have found it in Ande and in Keri and in Geoffrey. I'm going to bring this back to the work setting because we have set a really good foundation, and we've given people a lot to think about in terms of how do we define things for ourselves, what are our experiences, and how might they be influencing whether we're showing up because that's the way we need to, whether we're showing up to survive, whether we're actually showing up genuinely, or any of the other facets of the conversation we've had so far. So let's take this situation of we're sitting at our desk and all of a sudden somebody knocks on the door and they want to come in. How do you take the steps to show up for that interaction in that interruptive moment because somebody asked of your time?
It's an easy one for me in the sense that somebody's tried texting, phoning, and butting into my time since I sat down here. So as soon as I had the opportunity, I just turned everything off. In the meantime, before I did that, I turned off my phone, I shut down my email, anything but distraction, because I believe if I don't fully show up and give you my attention, I don't have to agree with you, I don't have to not like you, and I can agree with you. But I want to honor who you are by showing up and being present for you. And because that is so important to me, that whenever I'm doing either radio or TV, or even working with my own clients, everything gets shut down and I'm there. I'm there for you. That's the way I take it.
There are just certain things that just can't be interrupted, and then there are certain things that can. Now, if there's something that, hey, I'm cooking dinner and my daughter texts me and she wants to know something, of course I can take that, and you handle that appropriately, you show up for that, and then you go back to the dinner or whatever it was that you were doing. It's honoring the moment. Mm-hmm. And then
I say let's go to the workplace, because clearly we're all solopreneurs. You're in the office, you're the CEO, there are fires happening everywhere. You're like focusing on a proposal, a document, something that really is important for you. Head of marketing can come running in, or head of sales, knock, knock, knock. I think like any boundary system, if you take the time to articulate to your people, even if it's you put out a hand outside your door, whatever signal you need for people to know, look, I'm shutting down here because I need to have quality focused time. Or when I'm in a meeting, only if there's a fire are you allowed to interrupt me. Or you just say, hey, open office hours are from 8 to noon today. Anybody can walk in, ask me a question. I'm going to be out walking around saying hi to everybody. But I think setting up those boundaries ahead of time so that you don't get distracted. And I know this is a huge, huge, huge complaint in the workspace, especially workspaces that have too many meetings. And especially meetings where everybody's sitting. If you have a meeting, 15 minutes, and you stay with the agenda and everybody's standing, you might be able to get that focused energy, focused on what that meeting is about, and then everybody goes back to what they're doing. Again, it's clearly articulating the guidelines for your way of operating and engaging.
I think that's brilliant. All three of you used the form of boundary in some way. You're creating a boundary, you're acting within a boundary. And then, Andy, you articulated that. It's hard to do. It is hard to keep those boundaries. However, with my team, I do once a week, I have think time. Nobody is allowed to interrupt me during that think time. Everybody knows about it. They know when it is. And that's that. And the reason that's important is because that's when I want to be able to meander. I want to be able to dream a little. I want to be able to finish a contract. I want to be able to finalize a proposal. I want to do anything that my business needs. That's not answering email. That's not answering phone calls. That's not returning phone calls. It's the other stuff that is amplifiable in terms of results that come down to the fact that because of all of our distractions, if we're not careful, that they never get the attention that they need and they're never as good as they could be. And that means we're missing out right there. I love the way that each one of you talked about those boundaries and how it's really important. And I could see myself in each one of those because my team is remote. I love it. I love having a team where geography doesn't matter and we can still all work together. And so there still are times for distraction, which we have to really take into account. Do you guys have like a favorite book or a resource about setting boundaries or managing distractions that you like?
Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah, it's the closest thing. Boundaries for me have been, I'm an introvert with a creative streak. And so any new idea has always been fishtails me out of setting mental boundaries of like turning off the internet or turning off Twitter or turning this that could hook me has become my own personal journey of kind of like, no. So boundaries, best. I'll think about that. Best book.
Okay. My favorite when it comes to that, right up there with the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, is a book called The One Thing. It talks specifically about what do you do with the one thing? How can you set boundaries around that one thing? And how do you be honest with yourself and everybody else around it? So it brings up a lot of different skills that we may or may not have, but that we can go ahead and practice so that we can be the best us and really focus on our highest and best use of our time. Do you have one, Keri?
I've spent time being mentored with folks. I refer back to what has been preached in my head.
So you would say your mentorship and masterminds are a great resource.
Basically, yes, that's what I'm saying. I keep notes and I have my Hop Back on Track memo board. It's a digital resource I made for myself, and that's what I refer back to.
We're talking about our own interruptions so far. We're talking about how we know if people are showing up. Well, what happens if we're in a meeting, in a one-on-one with an employee? We're trying to coach them or guide them along. It's not a performance review, but it's a necessary conversation to improve their work or make a change that will amplify their work more to help them with their own personal and professional goals. Maybe it's you're having coffee with a prospective client and you're trying to meet them in a third-party neutral location because of the amount of distractions they have. So you're trying to get them to sit down with you. Who knows? Maybe it's your significant other. Maybe it's your child. But you know when they're not all in with you. And you've given them the gift of your time. You've given them the gift of your attention. What are the telltale signs, number 1? And number 2 then would be, are you able to shift that engagement and bring them back to being in the moment with you?
Telltale signs are... For me, I usually find them in body language, in the way in which they're either sitting or talking, or you'll notice that when someone isn't fully engaged with you, their eyes tend to turn off or turn down, or they fiddle with things because part of their brain is trying to save energy, is trying to work with what is distracting them. If I see it or if I notice it, sometimes I can even, particularly with family members, I pay attention to the tone of their voice. I'll often ask with family members, I'll just straight out say, hey, what's going on? You're not really here. Sometimes it's shocking, but in my family, I've been doing show up for so long because, ever since I've been teaching at university and teaching communications, I've been saying, show up. So they're used to me doing this stuff.
Well, okay, so why wouldn't it automatically then be in a business-related interaction too? I mean, you might be working with the CEO.
I do. I would say to people.
You were saying family.
So you said like a third-party neutral zone. I'm meeting somebody for the first time. I don't do a normal bio. You saw that by what I put on your in your response. Mm-hmm. I will literally say to people, well, what is it that you want to know about me so you can find out who the real me is? Go ahead, ask any question that you want. That usually triggers questions of,
well, what if they're just
what I'm going to get? Sometimes I get, oh, are you this or are you that? And so we start a conversation, and it starts it at a level that is kind of pre-business, if you want, so that the personalities are there.
What happens if they're just not that into you?
If they're not into me, then I will not want to do business with them, will I? Let's tell the truth.
It's a great screening process, but you said, well, to get them engaged, I leave it up to them to ask me questions.
No, I ask them to ask me questions. I'm actually prompting this thing to engage with me. If they say, well, actually, now I know this, I really don't want to do business with you, I think that's great. That's great news. Because why would I want to do business with someone that doesn't value my values? I just have to be honest enough to take that. Now, if I'm a desperate for capital to keep my company afloat, I might go, oh my God, I've just made a big mistake. But I personally don't think so.
No. You should never take money from anyone you're not in alignment with.
Here's to that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Keri and Andy, what do you think about that question?
I guess, you have to gauge the situation, but if I'm giving someone my time and we're in an interaction together, we're talking, whatever, and maybe they're avoiding the subject, maybe I need to ask different questions. I need to take that relationship upon myself to ask different questions or touch on the topic in a different way. Sometimes that's necessary. But if I notice that someone is just purposely not in the moment, they're not engaged in the conversation, but we both know that we need to have this conversation, sometimes you have to ask a shocking question to get them back in the moment. And so I guess it's just a matter of being a good steward of the conversation and knowing how to manage that.
Okay.
I think I like your expression about being a good steward of the conversation. I think sometimes we also have to be a good steward of the friendship or the relationship and ask the question. Not just go, well, when they're feeling better, they'll tell me. Because I had a friend who didn't ask a question, and then that person passed away because he was too afraid to get that honest, to get open, to show up, even though he wanted that man to show up for him. And then, of course, he passed away. So I think we have to be good stewards of this whole thing about personal honesty and showing up and valuing people to attract out of them. You can't force anybody to show up. You can only invite them. You can only engage them. You can only encourage them, but you can't force them.
If they're not going to show up, then we have to say, I'm sorry, it's time to go, don't we?
I think so, personally.
There's a level of self-respect in there. Interesting. I can't wait to hear what Andy is waiting to say. I can tell it's written all over your face.
Listen, we're the stewards of our own ship. We have our own businesses. What we want to do, who we want to work with. You're out, you're in. We have that flexibility and freedom. But when you're the chief marketing officer at a $3 billion company, you don't always have that choice. You have a board of directors you're reporting to. You have different constraints. So you're forced to work with people that normally you may not be in exact alignment with. So I use two techniques. One is in my own personal awareness. I'm comfortable with being vulnerable. I feel safe in my own vulnerability. And I know how to create a space for people to share. And sometimes it's TMI, but they get comfortable. But when they're not, I also go do something that I learned from Tony Robbins years ago, which was it's more than just creating rapport. It's really putting yourself empathetically into who they are and what's important to them, mimicking body language, taking on mannerisms for a minute so that you can then get into alignment with who they are and their purpose, their why, or whatever's going on. You create that resonance And then you're able to lift and pull and hopefully get them engaged in a way that creates meaningful change, meaningful opportunity. I mean, if you're in there, reviewing somebody that you cannot fire, okay? I mean, again, we're entrepreneurs. I'm all about firing. I do a lot of coaching on firing. They're out. Mm-hmm. Let them go bring those skill sets somewhere else. But for those who are listening who are in larger corporations, this is a very difficult challenge. You've got HR constraints. You've got so much. If you live in California, forget it. It's too much to do. Yeah. Opportunities. And so you have to do some really strong leadership. And again, I'm going to go back to what I said initially, Geoffrey. I'm just not on the same page with you. I think in this world where being vulnerable, you've got to be a really strong, confident person and really know and love who you are and be totally okay. I call my advice Ande-licious advice for one reason. And that's because if they don't like Ande-licious, they ain't going to come near me. But if they do, it's a quick filtering device. I try to create the space for that honesty and for that engagement and that rapport. But I do think, Geoffrey, there is some work, individual ownership and accountability that we do that a lot of people just aren't willing to do, or they'd be having more fulfilling lives.
Now, I agree with you up to a point, and I know you come back at me several times around this. I want to talk about something you said about the marketing officer who is faced, she's employed or he's employed, and they come up against a situation where they're dealing with a client or they're responding to being asked to do something, and it might be against their personal values. What do? Do they show up and resist, or do they make a choice of consciousness, leave that firm, or I'm uncomfortable because I think I heard swallow your pride and take the buck? Is that
I think it depends on what someone has going on in their life. They've got 3 mouths at home to feed and a mortgage.
So in other words, it's okay to be compromised with your personal honesty if you've got mouths to feed. Did you
Hey, Geoffrey, I've been unemployable since 92. I mean, I'm clearly on the same page as you. I'm just looking at, for those who do make the decision to work in a large corporate environment, ideally, yes, we'd love to go but sometimes for most individuals, they do not have the ability yet to live in courage. And yes, they compromise themselves and they lie to themselves.
Okay, and I want to take a different perspective here because, yes, it could be both of those things. But maybe if we only have time to make an impact to change one thing, maybe it's prioritizing our battles. Maybe it's picking the thing that is most important to us, that we see being the most value for our position, the team that we lead, and the team that we are part of, running the whole organization, the leadership team. Maybe it just isn't as important. One thing, everything cannot always be as important, and we do have to choose, and we can choose with integrity. And I feel like that piece has kind of been missed, and I want to just walk the center of the line. Right there. We're talking about candidness. We're talking about openness. So really quick, we're going to do a rapid fire. What does being candid mean to you?
We have to be open, yes. We have to be honest. We have to be confident and so forth. But I think, just being real is what we're saying. I'm
71 and have made so many gigantic mistakes and recoveries in my life that, I really actually don't give a shit if people like me.
Yeah, that definitely comes with age.
Just don't care.
Ande, how would you define candidness?
Well, my clients count on me for candidness. It's a really important role. But I do my best to use my impeccable word. I'm not going to just say, oh, you're a loser. I'm going to say, hey, let's step back. Let's look at it this way. And this is my advice, because at the end of the day, they need to take the advice and do what they need to do. I can't control that. I can only bring my best advice forward. But I think that there's a level of cruelty in our TV shows, a level of sarcasm, and I think it's okay to step back and choose your words wisely. and bring more consciousness to your candidness. And sometimes I'm really okay with the white lie, because at the end of the day, sometimes the pain that would be caused by really bold truthfulness for that person at that point in their life and the fallout that might happen from it, there might be a softer way. Mm-hmm. Still being able to speak your truth, use your impeccable words, but understand that they're on their own journey and you have to protect yourself as well with your own boundaries.
When I first took a workshop that really impacted me, it was something that was a leadership workshop. And one of the things I ended up writing was, how can I speak in such a way that my love and compassion is heard? Which I think is what you're saying. How can you speak compassionately? And being a Buddhist, I'm always looking at the peaceful way. However, that doesn't prevent you, or should it prevent you from showing up with a degree of honesty and a degree of compassion? Rather than tell the little white lie, I might leave it unsaid.
There's a level of responsibility that each one of our amazing Leaders Discuss panelists, Ande Lyons, Keri Jaehnig, and Geoffrey Lane, have shared today in our conversation of Show Up Already. And I think we might just have to have like a whole summit about showing up, is what I'm learning here, because there are so many facets and so many elements that we can't just let the conversation stop right here. We want your voice. We want your contribution to this. So first, you will find all of the program notes at voiceofboldbusiness.com/P27, or search the site for Show Up Already. We want to know your story and your experiences, because there are so many, and being a leader today with quickly changing marketplaces and having to do more with less and thinking on our feet quicker and faster than ever before, yet still owning our integrity and our responsibility and our candidness and our vulnerability and every aspect of how we take it on to be there in each moment actively and with purpose. Takes all of us to share our stories, takes all of us to define the journey of what leadership and being a leader is today. So tell us, how do you show up?
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Dewell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.